To call this budget workshop meeting to order. Before we get to the first agenda item, which is the only agenda item, which is the
Sure.
budget message, I'd like to ask Mr. Chappie to come forward. He and I talked. He has a short statement he'd like to make regarding the events that occurred out on the beach this weekend, and he's promised me to keep it very short and sweet. So, John, please come forward, and you have our attention.
Mayor Chappie.
Okay, Mayor Chappie.
Okay.
Actually, he said he didn't.
Get
he
it
didn't
straight.
Have
he didn't-
bruises.
He actually said he didn't need to sit through another budget presentation, that he'd done that enough
Yeah.
over the years.
It might still be commissioner to me. I don't know if I can get used to it.
That's all right.
Mayors-
They're all,
people
they're
like
all
you more
good.
than the mayor.
Mr. Chair, commissioners, county administrator, Jan, good to see you all. When I come through here, I always look around and I do miss the friends. I really do. You guys got a great team here, so thank you. Thank you all. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about, I just want to touch on two things real quick. Number one, this weekend was an unbelievably busy, crazy weekend on the island. Sunday was insane. I've talked with Sherry. Thank you so much for your quick response and the discussion, and we're going to have some get-togethers to figure out a plan. These long holiday weekends, my recommendation, advice, please, 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 in your budgeting process, you need to put some money down for security. It is a safety issue with the numbers of people that are coming to our beaches. Now I hear we're a 400,000 county. You just cannot imagine. We're getting together some statistics and pictures. I'm sure your different departments out there working. You're gonna find out how crazy it was. We had officers that were being, one of them was told, "We're glad they shoot cops now." And it was a matter of just managing the situation. It wasn't trying to enforce rules because you had too many people out there. We had something like 28,000 at least. It was insane. You couldn't even see the beach sand because of the umbrellas on the beach at Coquina Beach. The people in the umbrellas, mostly umbrellas, you just couldn't see the sand. They were packed so tight. Your lifeguards, God bless them. I don't know how they could do anything. They could not. I can't imagine them seeing whether anybody was in distress or not. It's not safe, and I appreciate Sherry jumping on it and working on it. The other reason I came, of course, is with regards to the Australian pine proposal to remove them. So I thought I'd just try to keep it moving along and just read the email that I sent Sherry. Sherry, thank you for getting back with me on Friday. As we discussed, the city of Bradenton Beach held an emergency meeting regarding the county project at Coquina Beach and the ever-increasing number of Australian pines to be removed. It is unfortunate that we heard about this plan through the newspaper. Many islanders still remember when the county school board clear-cut historic 100-year-old majestic live oak trees on a weekend where the new Anna Maria Elementary School lives. We all remember that. The city of Bradenton Beach is adamantly opposed to the trees being removed. We are extremely hopeful the county will not follow through with such a disturbing act that would change the great character of Coquina Beach. And most of you, I'm sure you've all been out to Coquina Beach. The trees are so beautiful out there in the areas. Australian pine trees, despite their designation as an invasive nuisance tree, do provide, in fact, tremendous benefits to our residents, visitors, as well as the birds and wildlife. This is the right plant in the right location, and it really is, folks. Further, there are no homes or structures in danger of being harmed by a limb or tree. These trees enhance the park and provide a tremendous tree canopy for the south end of the island. We strongly encourage the county commission to take some time, at least a month maybe, and reconsider the destruction and removal of the Australian pine canopies. The guiding light needs to be save the trees, not cut them down because you can. At minimum, we would suggest a far less drastic approach to drawing a straight line and removing whatever is in the way because of county improvements to be placed out there. This is a large park. There are significant large open area spaces. I believe there is a great opportunity for us to be creative, and the city would be more than happy to assist in any regard. The city is also requesting that a special city commission meeting with a county representative to explain this plan. I will be happy to call at any time at your convenience a meeting to help facilitate this. We just want to understand what's going on. Braden and Beach, over the years, we've been a fair partner with the county on several great projects. Speaking on behalf of my fellow elected officials, the city staff, we value our great relationship because historically we have held always a great relationship, and we try to be fair, and we understand, you got to have money in the game, and we've been a part of that. 1/3 of our city is Manatee County property, 1/3, 2.7 miles long, and that's Cortez Beach, Coquina Beach, Gulf and Bayside, and 1/3 of Braden Beach is Manatee County's most visited attraction. We're a tree city. We just really would like you to take a breath. When I've talked with several people, this discussion did not come up about in the plans that were submitted to the city when we went for the permit about a lot of these trees to be removed. And we would just like to take a breath and come back and look at this. It doesn't take a lot of thought just to draw a straight line when you're doing things. So, and then removing things that's in the way of that straight line. Let's get together and be creative and come up with something. There's a couple acres of open space. I can't believe there's things that can't be done, alternatives. So, such as cutting the canopies, giving the tree roots time to recover from any kind of damage in the areas that they do get close. So, I appreciate your time. I know this was a last-minute thing, and I just want to thank you again for allowing me to speak. And congratulations on another budget opportunity that you're having to look at some of these problems that we have to solve as a community and working together. Thank you.
Okay,
Any questions?
Thank you, John.
Appreciate it.
Commissioner Whitmore?
I just wanted to let the board know that I had wrote Sherry yesterday with various questions regarding Coquina Beach project, the contract, what exactly did we sign, the cost, the contract language, what, and other things like that. If it was a drop dead date that they had to start, maybe it was supposed to be today or whatever. I mean, just some things that she was gonna ask staff to look at. And also, I commented about the explosion of visitors this last weekend and relationships to TDT funding to help with some of these issues on major holidays. I've said this many times, I've lived there 50 years, and I've never, ever seen every street on the entire island, because my husband and I just drove around the island because you can't leave it, except I didn't go to Braden's Beach because I couldn't get there, but every street was full of cars, streets that I've never seen cars parked on. And, so I asked them to look at her to talk about in the future. Elliot, we're going to meet in the end of June about possible TDT funding to help, and the cost of whatever happens on this project if we have to delay it or whatever. So I think staff has a lot of work. I just want to, I talked to Sherry this morning. I don't think they're going to start today. I think we're going to pause maybe and get staff to give us some information. And I'd also like to know, what was the budget again? I forgot. We've all been involved with the cities, all of us. I think it's like $5 or $6 million that the state's put in and we've put in, and I could not remember yesterday what it was. And, usually when you stop a project, when we do roads, there's major penalties. That's the kind of stuff I wanted to have information so the whole public has it. So, that's it.
Commissioner Benak?
Yeah, it was quite a weekend. I did not try to make it to any beaches except for Friday night, and had no problem going Friday night. So I suggest if you want to go to the beach, go Friday night. But it wasn't only, my daughter lives on Siesta Key. It was the same situation. I actually ended up babysitting there Saturday night, and to leave the key after 9 o'clock, it was still slammed. I've never seen anything. My husband tried to go over to the beach at about 8 o'clock to go in the water. Couldn't get a parking space at Siesta Key at 8 o'clock at night.
Oh, at night,
at night.
yeah.
Our police department didn't shut down the park until 11 o'clock.
Yeah. So, I mean, it just was a super hot weekend, and everybody knew the only place they were gonna get any relief is at the beach and in the water. And that's just the reality of it. So, yeah, it's something that we definitely need to think about. The only thing I'll say about on these trees is my understanding it's a drainage issue. Has nothing to do with line of sight, has nothing to do with trees overhead. I have ridden my bike many times on that pathway. You know, I love the shade. I don't know about anything else about those trees as they provide shade. And as we all know from this weekend, shade is invaluable. You know, I've heard many stories about Australian pines and that they aren't good for habitat. Well, they're good for this habitat to give us some shade. But it is a drainage issue, and that is what the project is. It's a drainage project. So we need to hear more about the effect of that. I hope we have time still. I certainly would want to do everything I can to save the shade. That's all I'm gonna say, because that's as much as I know about it. So what we can do to do that, I'd like to hear about it from staff. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I guess maybe, I think Sherry has a few comments that she and I discussed this morning, just to kind of put this in perspective and then see where we go from here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. We do have some staff here that are involved in the project where we had anticipated possibly giving information, but as this unfolded over the last day or so, we would rather quickly pull together a full and comprehensive report. We want to look at how many trees in totality are on that area and give you some idea of the phased-in approach of what that removal is. We feel that we have provided the project from a phased approach. It will have an impact, as both commissioners and all of you know, on the drainage situation. As far as holding off any removal, there's no removal today. We've held them off. We will plan to act quickly, though. You'll know that the Public Works Director and his staff are in anticipation of any delay, then disrupts a future timeline that is turtle season and into January and February of next year. And so we want to have a full report. We'll be quick about it. We know that you're meeting over the next 2 weeks frequently. You'll be back again here on Thursday. You'll be back next Tuesday, next Wednesday. So we plan on putting together the information so that you can get a full comprehensive report. I hesitate to say more right now because I don't want to give inappropriate information.
Mr. Chair, I did see a document. It wasn't signed, but it was with regards to Woodruff and then there was a county thing, and it was not. This one was signed, dealt with a field adjustment, and it was talking about tree removal, and that was at the beginning of this month. So it sounds to me like, or it looks like it could have been an add-on. It wasn't part of the original overall scope of things. So I would hope, because it appears to be an add-on, that you would take the time to really look at this thing. And I appreciate, Sherry, your county administrator, your prompt action in this. Thank you so much.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we have a full report from an arborist that went back out and did a second review and third review, and we'll include that information for consideration in the report.
So are we not doing anything until we hear from you guys?
There's no removal that's going to happen today.
You just said today, though. So
Well, until we come back to you
Thank
and
you.
have you make final choice, and it will be soon. We don't
Thank
want
you.
to put our project in risk either. We've committed to the project, we've committed to the citizens, they'll have the appropriate drainage there too. So we'll make sure and be back here shortly.
Oh, Mr.
Commissioner Ball?
Thank you. I know that the Australian pines have come up before in the 6 years that I've been on this board, and Mayor, I think you were on the board at the time when it came up last time. So these Australian pines, the situation with them, it's not a new situation, and it obviously is one that we need to tackle and finally accomplish something to fix the flooding. So what I'm curious about, is there any possibility when the work is being done that we could plant some other type of trees besides Australian pines, once the grading is done and so forth? Is that a possibility? I don't know who to ask, Sherry, so.
we'll include any observations of that effect in a report.
Okay, there you go. Good.
Commissioner Whitmore?
Just to respond to that, I know we're not getting into major, but so the staff gets our feelings. If something like that happens, I just don't want a line of the new palm trees. That's no shade. You know, I know what's been out there for as long, way before me. Mr. Holmes brought them from Virginia. That's how they got here. We found these great trees up here, and they brought them to the islands. That's how they came. But just some kind of shade trees. It doesn't have to be a sterile, palm tree, guys. I don't know. But I saw on social media, and I got a little upset, and I'm probably going to, and I told this person, there's a big thing that all this is because of the town of Lombok Key. And I said, this is absolutely not true. Lombok Key didn't even know about this project until we informed them, because we'd been working with the city of Bradenton Beach for ages. So if anybody's watching this, or please Lombok Key had nothing to do with this, Joe, if you would maybe print that in the Island newspaper, because yes, they go through Coquina Beach. They had no input. They did not know about this project. Just want to confirm that. Am I right, everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, John. Have a great afternoon.
John.
Sure,
Thanks,
if you want
Mayor.
to sit and watch and listen for the budget, you're more than welcome
See,
to.
we're not going to raise taxes again, hopefully.
You know you love this.
Okay, moving on. At this point, we'll go to the agenda item number 1, the budget message.
Mr. Chairman, just gave us a moment to reset, and we're going to go down and get things ready.
Okay. Down. Going down to do it.
Spunk.
We're still on, can I ask a question? Of trees?
Sure. Betsy?
Oh, are you ready? Okay, I'll hold on. I was just gonna ask, do we have anything in writing as to the project about the trees? I was trying to find it, but I couldn't find anything, so,
Well, and yes, Commissioner will include that also.
That was one
okay,
of the questions.
because yeah.
Ready? Commissioners, thank you. Sherry Corrier, County Administrator, Manatee County. I'm here to provide the County Administrator's recommended budget message for fiscal year 2020-21. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners Baugh, Servia, Benak, Trace, Bellamy, and Whitmore, thank you for this honor. I'd like to begin today with some acknowledgments. As this session unfolds, you'll understand why. This is important for both the Commission and the public to understand the intense scrutiny this process goes through, and the skill and expertise of the persons involved to make sure that a recommended budget serves the community in the best possible fashion. First, to the Financial Management Department, Jan Brewer, Director, and her staff, seated here to the right, Sheila Ballesteros, Candace Cruz, Jamie Peltier, Sean Meschberger, Claudia Campos, Debbie Carpenter, Hunter Foxwell, Debbie Marchbank, and Haley Harrison, your financial management team. Next, the 12 department directors, and I want to thank them and their financial staff. Deputy County Administrators John Osborne and Karen Stewart, and the Public Information Office, specifically Nick Azera and Melissa Matisco. This afternoon, you will hear the recommended new 2-year budget from the administration. While the administrator delivers the overall budget message in May, the preparation for this budget actually begins at the department level much earlier in the fiscal year. Each department director and their program staff evaluate their ability to provide services under the charge of their department. The Financial Management Department is the overseer of your past, present, and future budget. During the months of November and December, the department fiscal staff worked to provide preliminary budget numbers assigned to the program tasks. Departments review the needs to meet the demand of service for their base and continuation services. Then they prepare a business case and narrative for each of their new desired decision units. Not all of these desired units make it to the top of the list for the departments, but by February of each year, the most crucial items are then turned over by the departments to your financial management office. FMD spends the next several months scrutinizing each aspect of the department request. This year, a pre-budget work session was held with the board on February 28th to discuss the funds previously set aside for the failed Amendment 1. This work session allowed commissioners the opportunity to bring up items of interest for the upcoming budget. A copy of the work session memo and a list of the items with commissioners' comments is included with today's budget message that you'll receive. You'll see many of these recommendations have been included where appropriate in this year's budget process. The overarching theme of today's budget message is the tremendous growth in the population of this area. When we met to review the department decision units on June 4th, you'll see more details outlining the various impacts of growth to the important services provided to our citizens. You just heard of some of it from Commissioner Chappie and others. Because of that growth, the school district has continued to expand to meet the demand of growing families, and 3 new schools open in less than 75 days, all equipped with additional teachers, support staff, traffic, and impacts to our county services. The Sheriff's Office has continued to expand over the years, gradually adding deputies to meet the growth, and this year is no different. The gross budget for next year is a recommended $1.5 billion, which includes reserves, internal services, and transfers. The net budget of $736.8 million proposes no change to the property tax rate. It is buoyed by an estimated 6.5% growth in the tax base. Florida's Save Our Homes homestead caps will prevent property taxes from increasing any more than 1.9% for Manatee County homesteaders. This year's recommended budget is based on the following financial picture for the year. Property tax revenue estimates continue to rise as a result of strong employment rates, a diverse local economy, and home sales that outpace many other areas of the country. However, there are signs that the economy is expanding at a slower pace than last year when property tax revenues here rose to 8.2%. This year, we've used property appraiser estimates of a 6.5% increase in property tax revenues. This growth is another sign of a healthy local economy, but is not as substantial as the growth that we had anticipated when the budgeting process began earlier this year. The second major contributor to this year's budget is an area where we've had previously anticipated a reduction. However, in the fall of 2016, voters were asked to consider an additional homestead exemption that would have resulted in substantial reductions to the board's annual finances. Amendment 1 was rejected by the voters, leaving Florida's local governments in a better position to meet the demands of communities throughout the state. Over the past 2 years, rather than commit annual revenue growth to recurring expenses, the board prudently invested those funds in one-time expenses. Now the board has the opportunity to use some of the funds set aside for Amendment 1 to address the annual expenses of a growing community. This will help bridge the difference between the property tax revenues that were lower than expected. In your packet, you'll receive a table, and included in that written budget message narrative is a table that points out the point of reference that you'll remember there's approximately $5.3 million of those set-aside funds were in the general fund. The other areas were in special funds. Also helping to offset lower than anticipated property tax revenues is $5.9 million in new interest from the prior year due to strong and stable rates in the market. Total estimates interest of $10.6 million is included in this recommended budget, which is an estimate of the anticipated average balance within the funds. After we enter the summer of budgeting workshops, there may be a desire to reduce some of these gains. But before you do that, I encourage you to keep in mind that Manatee County is growing at a pace between 8,000 to 10,000 people each year. This is higher than previous estimates of $5,000 a year. There are heightened demands for service in nearly every area we traditionally fund. This year's new funding requests come from internal departments, our constitutional officers, the state attorney's office, the public defender, court administration, and a long list of commissioner and constituent requests for new roads, sidewalks, public safety patrols, and more. So before considering a substantial reduction to any area of your revenues and savings, please remember that this budget funds only $19.2 million out of a total request of $37.2 million in new budget requests. In other words, we're recommending only half of the budget requests that we have received. Regardless of the budget decisions made throughout this process, your commitment to the principles of accountability, civility, and ethics, better known as ACE, are steadfast. We've prepared this budget to be an open, transparent process with plenty of options for public input and commission discussion. As your staff, we are committed to providing professional and respectful services to our community. In exchange, we ask for the same from everyone involved. So now let's take a look at some highlights from this year's recommended budget.
Women do things a little differently.
Those ones are doing it.
In 2016, before the recent turnover in the county administrator's office, I had the privilege to help bring about one of the more significant and meaningful changes to our annual budget process of the past 30 years. At that time, I was the director of neighborhood services, responsible for $20 million in public grants being distributed to local nonprofit agencies. With the board's approval, we began a pilot program with 12 of our nonprofit partners. We challenged those programs not to simply provide their traditional programs and services to our taxpayers. We asked them to join us in a transition to a results-first based mindset that rewards evidence-based outcomes. Change did not come easily, but over time it did come. Parenting Matters, a local nonprofit dedicated to improving parent-child relationships, was one of our first successful Results First pilot programs. They embraced Results First by capturing and reporting on the actual human gain of their programs. Parenting Matters now tracks the results of their activities rather than the activities themselves. An adjustment that has improved accountability and transparency while keeping the organization focused on behavioral changes that keep children safe and thriving. Those early successes provided momentum to expand our results-first philosophy to our workforce. Again, change did not come easily, and some long-standing practices were turned out in favor of new results-first based outcomes. In 2017, our Human Resources team worked with the EMS to solve a complicated issue of paramedic workload, shift duties, and overtime. They went directly to paramedics and carefully listened to their concerns, taking the time to understand why turnover was such a persistent issue. HR and EMS were able to reduce turnovers considerably by just taking the time to understand and address our employees' concerns. We are now in the third year of our Results First internship program, and I think most of the commissioners will remember recent projects our Results First interns have provided, including the new video annual report, the first ever Citizens Guide to the Annual Budget, and the new exhibit at Rye Preserve Nature Center devoted to the history of migrant workers in our area. In the upcoming budget, you'll be presented with opportunities, challenges, and a desired result for decision units and programs within department requests. This method will allow you to measure the success of your decisions by investing in the desired result. By the time you see the budget for 2021, you'll know if the results you invested in during 2020 paid off. For example, Should you decide to invest in adding the new requested positions of licensing manager, senior permitting technician, and 2 senior plans examiner inspections officers for the Building and Development Services Department, you should expect BADS to meet the new requirements of House Bill 7103 that requires only 5 days turnaround for permitting and inspections. And if you decide to approve requested upgrades for a new HVAC system, bleacher seating replacement, rental equipment, and security cameras for the Convention Center and Powell Crosley Estate, you will expect to see results such as improved security, capacity, and reservations of both facilities. Results First is the major theme I'm presenting as part of the County Administrator's recommended budget. 6 major funding areas within this budget include a continued commitment to law enforcement and public safety, infrastructure improvements, including the capital improvement plan and the infrastructure sales tax, employee compensation and workforce well-being, enhanced communications, meeting the public's level of service demands for 2020, and innovation and technology investments. In keeping with the County Commission's long-standing commitment to public safety, this recommended budget features continued strong investments in law enforcement, public safety, and the local court system. Specifically, I am recommending $2.7 million for 20 new Sheriff's Office deputies and support personnel and their equipment. That includes funding for 10 new sheriff's deputies, 4 additional correction officers, a chemist, a crime scene technician, and a deputy to provide security for the state attorney's office. Finally, with the opening of 3 new schools over the next 3 months, we will be continuing our commitment to sharing costs with the Manatee School District by funding 50% of the salaries for 3 new school resource officers. As part of our responsibility to public safety and due to a heightened level of cases related to our opioid epidemic, you'll also see investments to address the impacts to the court system. This budget continues its commitment to our successful drug court program. Within our own public safety department, 6 additional paramedics will complete our results-driven transition from 24-hour shifts to 12-hour shifts. This action improves response times during peak hours, and it has proven to reduce employee turnover. An updated and expanded post-disaster redevelopment plan will guide the community recovery process, not only in unincorporated areas, but in our cities if we're ever impacted by a major storm like Hurricane Michael. If a Category 5 hurricane like Michael ever makes landfall here, the board's 20% reserves will be consumed quickly. For that reason, this budget also invests $6.5 million to create a disaster recovery reserve that would be used to help rebuild our community in partnership with FEMA in the wake of a natural disaster or other community emergency. The coming fiscal year marks the 3rd full year of infrastructure sales tax, or IST funding. Already popular public amenities have been refurbished and reopened, such as the Lori Crawford Dog Park, skate parks at G.T. Bray, and Blackstone Parks. Year 3 of the infrastructure sales tax will bring about a visible progress on projects that were in development or design during the first 2 years of the tax. As part of the recommended 5-year capital improvement program, we have proposed the following: an investment of $12.2 million for the public library system. For our beaches and waterways, we propose $33.8 million, funded through grants and tourist development tax, dedicated to restore sand loss from beach erosion. The park system will receive a $68.7 million investment over the next 5 years, including highlights such as construction of the Lincoln Park Pool, G.T. Bray pickleball courts, a parish community park, and tourism tax investments to complete the Coquina Beach stormwater and parking project. Our heaviest investments come in the area of transportation. The 2020-21 portion of the capital improvement plan recommends $158.8 million in road projects alone. $14 million for intersection improvements. Sidewalks will receive a total of $6.4 million over the next 2 years. Gallagher & Company, a global independent healthcare consulting firm, has stated that Manatee County's employee health benefits package is best in class for public service employers. We're proud not only of the work that we do and the service we provide to the community, but also that we focus on the well-being of our employees. Over the past 5 years, the County Commission has endorsed our movement to the pay-for-performance method of rewarding employees who achieve the most during the year. Last year, as part of your annual budget, the board approved an allocation for the pay scale salary analysis tool. The online tool allows us to compare our employees' salaries against like-sized public sector employers in the region. We spent much of 2019 collecting our salary information and job descriptions and analyzing them against the market. The analysis shows that although Manatee County's salaries and benefits are now competitive in our area, a significant number of our employees are earning below the market level. As part of my recommended budget, I am proposing to invest directly in that group of employees by bringing their salaries up to the market level, providing a much-needed salary adjustment for some of our toughest field jobs. In addition to these measures, I'm recommending a 3% increase to address employee compensation issues. Constitutional officers may apply their 3% to their respective offices. In a region where unemployment is below 3%, a strong benefits package will always be a selling point for someone looking for work. But by improving our overall salary structure, we will be in a far better position to be an employer of choice. In the early months of my tenure as county administrator, we've worked hard to improve our communications with the public and with the board. We've taken simple but effective steps, like using the county administrator's blog to share good news stories, and the Manatee Minute that I use to relay brief updates on important board discussions via social media. Recently, we've struggled with whether to televise all county commission workshops or to provide a more interactive environment for larger board discussions. The county administration building is now 30 years old. It wasn't equipped to accommodate today's technology and for the space needs of today's meetings. During 2020, the county administration building will be unable to accommodate staff related to the departments in this building. In this budget, we're recommending $1 million for renovations and equipment on the 5th floor, the old 911 center, which is now being used as a training area and as office space for some building and development services staff. We plan to use that funding to convert the 5th floor training area and staff spaces into multiple conference rooms that will accommodate Board of County Commission work sessions, the Development Review Committee, and daily staff meetings. It will need technology to support those meetings, including microphones, monitors, and possibly video equipment in order to televise those discussions. This renovation project will extend the life of this building and the county's commitment to the downtown area. It will also free up the Manatee Room on the 4th floor and allow that area to be used for the Building and Development Services Department staff additions that will be needed. Most importantly, I am recommending the Citizens Action Center transition into a 311 center that will serve as an easy-to-remember, one-stop call center to resolve most citizen inquiries and requests. The 311 call center will be located in the Public Safety Center and can expand during emergencies and whenever there are significant events. In April, the Herald Tribune reported on the area's exploding population trends. The story used the U.S. Census estimates to report that Manatee County's population had reached nearly 395,000 in 2018. With steady growth of between 8,000 and 10,000 people a year, it is safe to say that Manatee County's population has eclipsed 400,000 people. We are one of the 100 fastest-growing counties in the United States. In recent years, the board has invested in employee compensation to keep pace with the market, but we have not done enough to address the workload that results in 90,000 new people moving here since 2006. Heavy workloads create delays and contribute to the stress in the workforce we've explained to the board for many years. In addition to all of the service demands of the new population, we also have a new infrastructure sales tax that has created substantial new pressure for staff to meet those demands. Over the next 5 years, 55% of the 206 board-approved infrastructure sales tax projects will be in motion. This budget proposes to address employee workload, stress, and morale issues throughout workforce enhancements to meet service demands. We have been able to maintain a reputation as a responsive and innovative county government in recent years thanks to board-approved investments in technology, innovation, and cybersecurity. We recommend that those investments continue because all county departments and constitutional offices are impacted. This area is one of the largest increases of your ongoing expenses. Investments in cybersecurity, software and equipment upgrades, and the IT professionals to oversee it amount to $2.9 million. This recommended budget maintains the board's 20% reserves across all funds, as required by board resolution. In addition, the clerk of the circuit courts and I, together, recommend additional measures to bolster the county's fiscal stability by rebuilding the board's budget stabilization fund. With the proposed budget, your stabilization fund will reach $18.3 million. For several years, we relied heavily on the stabilization fund to minimize workforce and service reductions during the Great Recession. Economies are cyclical, and the strong economic climate of today has lasted for several years. A slowdown is inevitable, and when it arrives, your stabilization fund will help sustain critical services. This 2-year budget plan invests in law enforcement and public safety, improved communications, and quality amenities for the public. This recommended budget continues to invest in the well-being of employees, our most important asset. In the coming year and into the future, we will continue to adapt to service demands through technological enhancements and innovation.
Yay, that was great. I never heard of clapping after a budget presentation.
First one I've seen.
Yeah, me too.
Well, Commissioners, that concludes my recommended budget for fiscal year 2021. On Thursday, we're going to be delivering a summary of your fund analysis. That'll be on Thursday. On July 4th, your department directors will present their departmental budgets and decision units along with the results they expect to deliver if awarded funding for next year. Also, I just wanted to remind you that in a packet that you receive, you'll have a schedule of all the next budget meetings. On June 5th, the constitutional officers will be here in the afternoon. On June 19th, we also have the 5-year capital improvement plan, which also includes the IST. One final thing to recommend, the property appraiser will certify your taxable values no later than July 1st, and once those figures are finalized, our budget office will use those updated figures to adjust property tax revenues to their certified amounts. This new version and the proposed budget will be submitted to the clerk of courts no later than July 15th. And then lastly, there are 2 more items. We'll hold a budget reconciliation meeting on July 30th, where you'll review additional information in response to flagged items, resolve any remaining budget issues, and set a tentative maximum millage rate to be provided to the property appraiser. This is no later than August 4th. Following this step, the property appraiser will mail truth in millage or trim statements to each property owner, advising them of the proposed property tax amount and notifying them of the date, time, and place of the first required public hearing for the budget. Those 2 public hearings have been set. The first one is September 10th in this chambers, and the second one is September 17th. So with that, I'm going to close. It's pretty extensive amount of information. I would remind you that when we come to you on Thursday with the fund summaries, details related to the budget recommendation from the administration will start to become more clear. There'll be some additional information that we present on June 4th in the morning about the growth in the area, the population growth that we're finding as relates to the 2020 census. And I've asked Mr. Osborne if he would go over some of the impacts of what that growth would mean to the different departments. So it'll be a brief discussion on that, and then you'll hear from each one of the departments and their desired units so that you can discuss any possible impact to the budget. And with that, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present the budget in detail and thank those involved and accept any questions.
Of course. Thank you very much. Commissioner Whitmore?
Just a few things. What will our millage rate recommended?
The combined is 6.4326. It remains the same.
Yeah.
And the unincorporated, specifically 0.6109.
Okay, so our total is 1.5. Our net is 736.8. Was 736 million. Isn't that less than what it was last year?
I'm going to let Jan answer many
Yes,
of these.
isn't it? Wasn't it?
is.
Oh,
It's-
isn't that weird? I remember that was
It is.
738 last
It
year.
is. It's within it's within 14 million.
So it's less. Whoa.
It's a little bit more.
Oh, more. Okay, sorry.
And we will have for you, we can put together a fact sheet for you when we go to the next meeting
Okay.
so that you'll have these bullet points for
And
you.
surprising how our growth is only 6.5. It's been in the 8s and 9s for the last few years.
Yes.
20 new officers to the sheriffs. Well, 20 new positions. Thank you.
That's fantastic.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. 6 paramedics. I think this stuff needs to be said.
That's
Those are
fantastic.
key points. 6.5 million in a disaster recovery reserve, which is probably smart because then you match it with the FEMA, but we can get started on stuff right away if we have the money. 3% increase to salaries. That's down from last year. It was
That's not
4.
3% increase to salaries. Let's clarify that.
Yeah, because I wrote it down.
The 4% from prior years was to address compensation issues, and you would have heard me mention that we have a certain group of people, based on the overall review that we've done with all the job descriptions and pay scale, that we need to address bringing those up. The 3% is what we will be able to use for compensation issues. We still use the pay for performance method. That's not going to change, and so individuals can be rewarded for their performance. Where your constitutional officers do take the 3% and use that adjusted in their own method.
Well, what I meant was 3%, but it's pay for performance, but that would be the max.
Percent is all compensation
Got it.
issues.
And $1 million for the 5th floor for possibly a work session space. Great. CAC Center. I know Casey is going to be retiring. So, and I know she's been involved and she's gone up and seen the 311 system.
One of the, Commissioners, one of the reasons for the request and recommendation for the 311 center is that over the last few years, with many of the emergencies that have arisen, you'll know that they impact the CAC center dramatically. Also, with red tide and with the hurricanes and other emergencies, we've stood up the Citizens Information Center, which is the CIC, and that is stood up at the Public Safety Building. What has happened is a lot of calls get diverted to the 911 phone number, and then they're transferred over to either CAC or CIC. And so this recommendation, with the support of Jake Sauer in the Public Safety Office, is to combine those so that we aren't standing up a new unit, but that we run information across all of the county for internal services. And so the CAC could be recommended to be rolled into and create the new 311 center.
Good idea. And just my last comment, cybersecurity. Paul Alexander has been a godsend to this county. I've been here for a while, and we have so many threats right now, and we have professionalized and gotten our IT where, every time you see somebody young, I said, are you going to IT? And they say yes. So, we're keeping up with the threats as far as what we're being told. And I'm just very happy that, we're spending the 2.9 million.
It's recommended the 2.9 million,
Or-
which is quite interesting because it's across all individuals asking for assistance. So that's constitutional officers and county departments to continue the cybersecurity that's most crucial, and software and equipment and IT upgrades.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good job, Sherry.
Okay, Commissioner Ball.
Good job, Sherry. It was delightful to listen to it. Question, last year and the year before, when the administration would look to see at what they thought the increase was going to be, was that at 8%? No, I think Carol mentioned it, actually.
Yes.
It was 8%, right?
And 1 year was 9.
All right, and this year, we're putting it down to 6.5.
Yes, I'm gonna let Jan address that as recent communication with the property appraiser's office.
I'm glad to see it, though, to be honest.
Yes, we asked their best opinion. Of course, they can't certify it, but their best opinion was it was going to run around 6.5 this year. So that's why we're estimating instead of going higher.
Well, I'm glad to see it, because the last 2 years, if I recall correctly, we had to reduce the revenues that we thought we were going to have, because they actually came in lower than what was projected. So I'm glad that you did what you did this year. I am thrilled with the increases that you've told us about, and I know today's just a quick, description of what's coming, but, I think you put the money where we need it. So, infrastructure, the sheriff's office, paramedics, it's all good stuff. And I'm really, believe it or not, I'm glad to see the 6.5 going into the disaster recovery fund. I think that's a great idea. This is a really good and a transparent budget from what I've seen so far from you. So I'm thrilled. Thank you.
Thank you.
First time ever, I think, since I've been up on this board. I'm really happy. Thank you.
Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, it's a good kickoff. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of details. I really appreciate this broad brush, and I think it's good that we get the message out to folks, because it is our biggest part of our job. We're going to hear from a lot of folks that are looking in different areas for additional funding, no doubt. It always happens. So the letters from the constitutionals, like the chief judge and the sheriff's office, what their requests are, have we received those?
Yes,
we did.
we have.
Thought we got the
Jan.
chief judge one.
Yeah.
We do. We have received the information from all the constitutional officers. We put it in a packet, and we'll provide it for you. I believe it's next week that we'll provide it.
Next Wednesday is the constitutionals meeting in the afternoon, but Jan and her staff are prepared, once we finish up with the fund summaries, to provide you. We're going to give you the next set of documents when we're done with the difficult one from before. So we'll be providing those. And Commissioner Benak, as you said, what we liked about being, and everyone contributed to the video and its content. And basically, though, I'd say Melissa Matisco spent all of the time adding a lot of the graphics and designing it based on the budget message. So I want to thank her and Nick and all of those. But it also will allow the community to see the finer points of the budget, and we want to hear that response to see if that's received well as well.
And I am really happy to see a number put to the stabilization fund. I think we all know that that's something that we did live off of for quite a few number of years. And so it's important to have that replenished and to have that front and center, because everyone, people look at our funds, as well they should, and see some money there that is unallocated. Well, it's important to show that it is a specific reserve set aside for when in fact we do have a downturn, and we will not have this increase all the time in our revenues. It doesn't happen. What goes up can come down. Everyone says it must. I'm not going to say must, but
In
certainly
fact, I think,
experience has shown it does.
I think Jan will corroborate me on this, but we're looking at using a 6% we used.
Correct.
For the second year
For
of
the
the
second
budget.
year.
So 6.5 this year and 6% the next
Yes.
year.
Yeah, and that was actually going to be one of my questions, because I know it's a 2-year budget, but these are the numbers right now for the first year of the
Yes.
budget. Right, and then the other thing, the 1.9% increase in tax, again, that maximum allowable to go up, that is based on the consumer price index? I want to make sure I got the right index.
Right. Yes, it is the CPI, and that's with Save Our Homes.
Right.
So every year, your home can only go up the lesser than 3% or whatever CPI is. And at this year, it was 1.9.
1.9.
And last year, it was 2.2, I believe.
Okay, and I still remember when it was 0.8.
Yes.
Because things, you know.
It was.
And, you know, thank goodness inflation is not out of control, but it is changing, so that's good to know too. Okay, well, again, I know it all sounds good. Certainly, I think the sheriff's office, to get the folks, we are growing. They need help in doing a lot of, not just deputies on the road, so I'm glad to see a couple positions. But I wouldn't be surprised. I think last year they came in asking for 30 people, so I know we're all, yay, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're asking
Best
for a
I've seen.
whole lot more than this.
44.
44? Oh, thank you.
44?
Yeah, I thought, yeah, I was gonna say.
Really?
You know, it's always,
bummer.
sometimes you just need a little reality check.
Yeah.
So,
They're
You had to
happy.
ruin our day, didn't you?
Well,
I thought it was what they asked for.
We have been speaking back and forth with all the constitutional
Okay.
officers and honing in on, there's, these themes. The growth theme is obviously the main theme, technology is another theme, and we're hoping that we've been able to address to our ability what will allow them to continue to make progress. One thing I wanted to mention is at the end of our questions, we do have a full packet for you that has the written narrative of the budget message. So if there's something you saw, or you heard, you want to go back and look at, it's in writing exactly as it was presented. And then the detailed information from Jan's office, the attachment A that goes through every single item. That'll help when you have constituent questions or you want to look a little deeper.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing nobody else, we'll, the devil's in the details, which will be forthcoming, I know, shortly. So at this point, we'll open it up for public comment. If there's anybody from the public at this point that would like to come down, please feel free. Apparently, nobody from the public at this point, so I'm sure we'll hear more from them later. So at that point, I guess we'll just adjourn for the day.
Yay.
Thank you all very much.
Hopefully.